through this. All right. All right, first order of business is public comments. Any public comment? We have a microphone over here. I would ask you to go up and talk into, since we've had concern from residents that they can't hear public comments on the video recording. Any public comments? All right, Matt, do you want to introduce the green light?
Yes, so we are going to have a presentation by Greenlight. We have a couple people on tonight?
Just Casey.
Just Casey, okay. Oh, yes, yeah, okay, yeah, hi Casey. So Greenlight is a fiber optic venture out of central New York, I believe, originally. They have been expanding into our region, starting with Clifton Park, and now they are looking to expand their fiber optic network into Malta, and inclusive of that is the village of Round Lake. So we've had a couple of discussions with them recently, and it's going to be an option that's going to be coming hopefully later next year. But based on our discussion so far, everything sounds really good. So they're going to give a little presentation to the public tonight, and then answer any questions that anybody has from there. So without further ado, Casey.
It looks like it's on page 5. If we go to page 1, start at the beginning.
Oh yes, you are correct. There it is.
Hello, everyone. I am Casey Henninger from Greenlight Networks. I have been with the company for about 7 years, a little over 7 years now. So I was lucky enough to be employee number 4. So I kind of got in there right at the beginning, and it's been really exciting to see how far we've gone and where we're going to go. So I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here and hear this presentation. So a little bit about Greenlight Networks is we were founded in 2011, based in Rochester, New York. So it was started by our current CEO, Mark Murphy. He actually has maybe now 30 years of experience in the telecommunications space, previously with Frontier, Fiber Tech, Time Warner, XO Communications. So he saw an opportunity in Rochester where people really wanted another option. They were not happy with who their internet service provider was, and I think he got a sense of what he's learned in his previous positions and what he wanted to maybe do differently. So he started Greenlight Networks in 2011. So it is just internet only and 100% fiber optic to the home. So it's an all fiber network. So we started in Rochester and then expanded to Buffalo and Binghamton and now into the capital region. And a big core of our business model is to go to places that don't have access to fiber. So we're not going to go to a space that already has like a Verizon Fios or a Google Fiber. There are, as you know, a lot of places that don't have that access to that high-speed fiber optic internet service. So we want to go and build in places where people don't currently have access. Next one. So as Matt had mentioned, we did announce our expansion into the capital region earlier this year. We have started construction in Clifton Park. We're actually probably going to be announcing in early November our first customers. So we will be connecting people in about a month. So we are looking to invest about $25 million in the region initially and then go forward from there. We are going to be providing access to approximately 23,000 homes by the end of next year. We actually are starting to plan where we're going in 2024 as well in the capital region. So we've kind of just begun and we're really excited about what's to come. So our Greenlight management team, I mentioned Mark Murphy, president and CEO. We actually have several people that have come from the telecommunications space. We're really proud of our leadership team. They do a great job, and just wanted to introduce or give everyone a view of who's at the table. Again, a lot of them have experience coming from Frontier and Time Warner, so a lot of years in the telecommunications space. Okay, so in 2019, we announced our joint venture with LaChase. The reason this is significant is they have been doing construction and construction management for over 75 years. So in order to allow us to build our network faster and in multiple projects in multiple municipalities throughout New York State, we really had to work together to expedite the construction process and streamline it as much as possible and make it as efficient as possible. So Greenlight is in charge of deciding where we go, any pre-construction work like getting permits from municipalities, the network design, and applying for the access to the utility poles. And then LaChase oversees the management of all of our subcontractors as well as the construction projects themselves. And we've continued that relationship not only in Rochester, but in all the areas, including the capital region. So they are managing that project in Clifton Park. So a little bit about how Greenlight compares to the current providers out there. We have this is our base package. It's 500 megabits per second download and upload for a flat $50 a month. So there's no taxes, no contracts, no hidden fees. There is a $100 installation fee that you can either pay all at once or you can break it up into 4 payments of $25. We do also run different like free installation promotions throughout the year too. So there's an opportunity to take advantage of that to get that waived. But again, we don't do something where it's like $45 for 6 months and then all of a sudden your bill increases. We have a same price for all philosophy. So the customers we had back in 2011, they were paying that $50 a month, and then the customers we're connecting this week are also paying that $50 a month. And then from there we go up from there. So it's $750 by $750 for $75, and then we do a gig, so 1,000 megabits per second for $100, and then we have our 2 gig product, which is we call Binge, for $200 per month. So we are an award-winning fiber to the home provider, recognized by several different organizations. We're really proud of that fact. Especially, I think from Broadband Now, we do rank as the #1 fastest internet provider nationwide, as well as in New York State, and then the #1 fastest provider nationwide. We won that based on our gig offering, or our Binge offering that we launched in 2018. We also have won the best internet service provider in Rochester for 5 years in a row. And we've been named to the Rochester Chamber Top 100 list of fastest growing privately owned companies. And I believe we are going to be named this year as well. So we'll find out in November. But all things that we're really proud of. We've worked really hard over the last now 11 years to get there. So it's really exciting for all of our employees at our company. Another thing we're really proud of, and that is a core value and really important to Greenlight Networks, is the customer satisfaction. That comes from the top down. Our CEO likes to say that when people get connected, he wants it to feel like Christmas. And we know how important it is to continue that feeling for the length of how long they are a customer. So we have customer support concierges. So when you do call in to Greenlight, you're getting somebody that is at Greenlight in one of our offices. We don't outsource our customer service. So that's something that's really important with us, so that when they're calling, they get people that know the company, know the network, and know what they're doing, and can help them with anything that they need help with. We also are really proud of working with community advocates within the neighborhoods that we connect, kind of that organic groundswell to get people to know about Greenlight, learn about Greenlight. We do educational seminars. We go to community events, and we'll attend neighborhood association meetings. Do a similar presentation like this just to tell everyone about Greenlight, answer any questions they have, walk them kind of through the construction process so they understand what's happening and what will happen. That way they don't feel like they're in the dark or they don't know what's going on in their neighborhood. So our Net Promoter Score, another thing we're really proud of, is 77.4. We actually just did this again, so we'll get a new score. I think in about a week we get our new score, so we're all really crossing our fingers that it either increased or stayed the same. But so this surveys our current customers, and It can either be detractors, passives, or promoters. So we're really proud of that 77.4, because anything in the positive range, so anything from 0 to 100 is actually considered good. A lot of companies are in the negatives. So we're really proud, and you can see how we stack up with different competitors as well as the internet service average, and same with Wegmans, because we're all big Wegmans fans. We're really proud that we beat them out too as well with that. So a little bit about our employment growth. I mentioned that I was lucky enough to be employee number 4. So I was in that East Rochester office. I did not work out of Mark Murphy's house, but I did start in that East Rochester office with that core small group. And as you can see, it's at 160 now and constantly growing throughout all our markets. We are planning to open an office in the capital region and have local employees and work with local contractors as well. We currently, I believe, have 3 employees in the capital region. We have an outside plant engineer, a government relations person on the marketing team, and like a permits and poll analyst person. So we're really excited to grow the force out here as well. So the fiber advantage, people often ask, what's the difference between fiber, cable, DSL, even wireless? And it's the nice thing about fiber is that it is future proof. So right now we go up to 2 gig, but with our current network, we will be able to go up as people need it, eventually launching different speeds, but going up to 5 gig, 10 gig, 40 gig. We won't have any issues in the future. So we call it future proof. But the nice thing is you can connect all the devices throughout your home. And as we know, it just that's just getting more and more with phones, TVs, Nests, Echoes, all of that stuff. So the need for bandwidth for all the new devices that we're able to use now is just growing and growing. Same with now having gone through the pandemic, and even now we can see we need that high internet speed that you can get from fiber to work from home, learn from home, as well as stream all the content that you want. The streaming services are just getting more and more robust, so you're able to get basically anything you want through streaming. So that's a part of the reason we don't offer a TV package, because it's kind of a slowly dying medium, and all the streaming services, they already all do a really great job and have all the content. So we just provide the ability for people to get their content through streaming. And we are an approved affordable connectivity program provider. So this is the current program that kind of came after the emergency broadband benefit program that was launched during the pandemic. So eligible customers, they receive up to a $30 a month discount for broadband services, as well as a one-time discount of $100 for a laptop. And the household is eligible if they meet one of the criteria listed here. So they're able to order that service and get that discount with Greenlight. So they can get 500 megabits per second download, and they only have to pay $20 a month right now. So what we have planned in Round Lake, it's, as you know, it's a village. It's located within one of our Greenlight districts in Malta, the Malta-Morris district. So as Matt had mentioned, we do plan to have connectivity available in Q3 2023. So we've actually been kind of working on this for a while, because it takes about 300 days for us to get access to the utility poles and basically anywhere in New York State at this point. So we did start making these plans and making these preparations so that we will be able to provide service in 2023. But this is where we are in the process for Malta, Morris, and Round Lake, which is included in there. So this is something we had presented this to the leadership in the village. How can Round Lake help? So if there's any neighborhood association information, any community events information, we would love to partner once we have everything in order to be able to move forward to do a press announcement similar to what we've done in Clifton Park in Malta, just to get the word out to all the residents in Round Lake that we will be coming, that we will be available. We do have an interactive map that we do construction updates on, as well as once people do sign up on our website, they get on our list for any type of pre-construction or construction updates. So those will go out either on a bi-weekly or a weekly basis, depending on what's happening, just to keep people informed in what's going on in their neighborhood. As well as we did reach out for any information on what the permitting process in the village. Each municipality has their own process for permitting. So we will follow whatever the municipality sets forward. So that's some discussions that we've had with the village currently. And then if there's any village owned conduit available for green light use, this is pretty rare, but we do ask because we'd be able to, instead of doing any underground construction, if there was conduit, we'd be able to put our fiber in there if there isn't utility pole access. So I think that's all the information in the presentation. So now I want to see if there's any questions that I can answer.
Is fiber optics currently in Round Lake?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I thought it is over the buried cable in the Washington Avenue to run to Global. That was many years ago.
Can you use the microphone, please?
A number of years ago, is this on?
No.
A number of years ago, I was told that Global Fabric has fiber optic cable running through the village. Some of it is buried under Washington Avenue. I don't know if that's true or not.
So I don't know if that's true or not. And if it is buried, they most likely had their own conduit. They laid their own conduit, so they and again, they most likely would not give us access to that. But we would still, if we do move forward, we would provide service throughout the village. So we're planning to connect the whole village.
Oh, Tom, you have a question?
Yes, I do. And thank you for the presentation. That's very informative. You're probably speaking to the most backward person, excuse me, regarding internet and this kind of thing. I welcome the idea of competition. I think that's what makes us all great. But help me understand this a little more. Correct. I have Spectrum and I get my phone, my computer, and my phone, computer, into something else.
TV?
Yes. Yes, through Spectrum. Now, you would have to install fiber optic throughout the village to make this work, correct?
So yes and no. So we would have to install fiber optic. So how we organize our construction is green light districts. So we design the fiber. Our engineering team will make the fiber design within that green light district. So all the village of Round Lake is all in one green light district, but so how it is we run fiber on the utility poles, and then we install a piece of equipment on the utility poles called a splitter. And then off of that splitter, the line of fiber goes directly to each person's house that places an order with green light. So as long as there's light to that splitter that goes to someone's house, then they can get service, even if maybe further along in the construction process, their splitter isn't what we call lit. So yes, we do plan on connecting the whole village, but you don't necessarily need to in order to provide service too.
But we don't, I'm sorry, Kath, but we don't currently have fiber optic in the village, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. So if I were to choose your service, I would only be getting the internet function.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Okay. All right. That helps. What are your numbers looking like in Clifton Park? And I'm not asking for specifics. I know you're not there yet, but do you know what neighborhoods and what kind of numbers you're looking for, or hope to, or maybe have hope to get at some point?
So I do know what we're hoping to get in the new markets we go into within 4 years. I just don't know if it's confidential, so that I
Okay,
can't
okay,
share it
understood.
publicly. So I don't want to share it if it's supposed to be confidential.
Oh, I
I can
understood.
double check if it's in, if I can share it, then I'll be happy to email the mayor, Gary, and share that with him. But I do want to say that we are planning. So right now we're building along Grooms Road in Clifton Park.
Mhm.
And so we'll be connecting the surrounding neighborhoods there first. But then we do plan to build, I believe, almost the entire town of Clifton Park throughout 2023. Like, so the bulk of that 23,000 homes we're hoping to connect is in Clifton Park, and then some in the municipality of Rotterdam as well, in Malta.
And if I can continue, Gary, if you'll allow me, this Malta connection that you're working on right now, not the village of Round Lake, but out Route 67. There's not a lot out there, but once you get out to Kings Isle, which is a new kind of like a townhouse style development out there, just before the Stillwater line, I believe. Is this part? Are you going into that, or do you know that yet, or do you know what I'm talking about?
So I do know that we are. So if it is it like an MDU, or is it like single family homes?
No, it's not single family homes, but as you go out 67 on the right, there's a kind of like a big, huge townhouse. They call it Kings Isle. And then on the left, they're developing what was the, I can't remember the name of the farm, but they're creating even more over there. And I guess my point is, what kind of numbers, what's the potential for the kind of numbers with that part of your plan, Malta, the Malta plan and the Round Lake plan? Are we talking about 10,000?
So I think in Malta, there's about between 6,000 and 7,000 homes. So we are planning to connect with our initial construction there, about 75% of those homes. So, I mean, ideally we would want all 75% of them, but that's what we're planning to do in Malta. And then for the additional 25%, we would make, because I think what's left is the most rural parts. So it definitely changes the business case for building. But we are, Jan, he's our government relations person, and he is exploring options for funding. So you know, there's a lot of government money out there that is being kind of earmarked for broadband. So he's looking for the different avenues for those types of projects so that we can connect those rural areas.
Okay, thanks. And I won't pursue this any further because it's a swamp that I'm fearful of putting myself into. But I mean, it's a good idea. But give me a rough guess. If I have Spectrum, you're saying you give me 2 gigs to start, but the potential is there for more. Is that correct?
It depends. You would have the option to order anywhere from 500 megabits per second to 2 gig.
Okay.
That's our highest package. So yes, but again, the potential is to, we can offer higher products at some point. We don't currently, but we will have the ability should we need to. Right now, we don't see a lot of people ordering that 2 gig. I just don't think people need that much yet. We do have some customers that do, but for the most part, the majority of our customer base is on that initial product of 500 megabits per second upload and download.
And you're saying everything that I hear in my shrunken world of this kind of experience is that everybody's going away from regular TV to streaming.
Yes, yes. I think I actually just read an article that came out about the Peacock streaming service and how their subscribers they've had growth over like this past quarter to their streaming service versus like their linear service, which is what they have on TV now, like the cable service. So you still would be able to get cable. You just would have to order that through a separate provider, or you can move to streaming. And I will say that a big part of those educational seminars that we do for the community, they are geared around cord cutting. And we have information on our website, and we just actually signed with something called My Bundle TV, which is a really cool tool that people can use to kind of help them determine like what streaming service they need to watch whatever they want to. So they provide those recommendations and then offer some discounts too, which is pretty cool. So we're really excited to launch that to help.
Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it.
Great questions.
One of the things, Tom, that Casey alluded to in her presentation with regards to working from home, the way that the cable providers work in upload speeds. So you transmitting data from your computer to somebody else's computer via the internet is a lot slower than the 200 megabits that Spectrum provides is the download speed, but their upload speed is significantly slower than that because they try to maximize the downloads. With Greenlight, what they do is their upload speed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, their upload speed is equivalent to their download speed. So it's 500 up and 500 down. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. So that's something we started doing in 2020 as a response to the pandemic and everyone being at home. And then people really responded to it. They really liked it. And as we all know, things kind of changed forever after that. So we made that permanent. So that is a permanent synchronous speed that we offer completely.
That's a real big benefit from people that are working from home. And just one other factoid that I read about recently, just you were talking about Peacock, is that for the first time last month, more people streamed more hours than they watched on traditional TV for the first time ever last month. So more was done online than was done on traditional TV. So it's definitely going that way.
Tina, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do have a question. So, and you may not know this since it's more on the construction side, but putting in the fiber along all of the telephone poles, I'm just thinking like, what Burlington, which is sort of our main street, how long does it take you guys to do per se each pole? Just because some of our streets are very narrow and we would need to alert the residents that, they may encounter blockages if the trucks are there for periods of time. So I'm just curious how quickly or how lengthy it is for each pole to be done. And I realize each one could be different based on challenges of how many trees, this, that, and the other. But just kind of give me a sense of how long it takes to do a street of like 10 to 15 poles.
So there is a few phases of work that gets done on the utility poles. So you did mention like the trees, like part of it is tree trimming that we will have to do per the utility pole owners. That is a process that they require because we will have to have a contractor in like making moves of the other attachers to make space for us. So that is something that will happen. And that does take longer than the actual hanging of fiber. I don't know exactly how long per pole, but that is something I can get and send along. I'd be happy to talk to our director of regulatory to just get an average of per pole for each part of the process. So you guys will be more prepared for what to expect. And we do communication before any of that starts to everybody that it impacts. So it probably all go out at once within the village to let them know that is happening.
Okay, excellent.
But once the poles are prepared, the actual hanging of fiber is so fast. It's unbelievable, like how much footage of fiber they can hang in a week.
Good. That's good to hear.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tina.
My last question is, I know, and I was very excited to see when you guys were going in Clifton Park. Finally, Spectrum's got some competition, thank God. But it had, check to see if it's in your area, and it said, oh, it's not in your area yet, but sign up and we'll notify you. I haven't gotten anything about this, but I'm assuming it's because you haven't formally announced it because you're going through the pre-planning phases of getting with us and everything else. Is that correct?
Exactly. Once we have any necessary agreements that the village requires, then we'll, because you can see on our interactive map that Clifton Park is kind of called out there. It's been broken up into their green light districts. So we would publish this type of information, like we just announced Malta. So we're able to publish the Malta information. And we have talked internally because we might want to just have the village of Round Lake be its own district. So the construction planning would be included with this Malta project, but publicly, if people are going to associate it with Round Lake versus Malta, then we would want to match what the public perception is. But again, then you would be able to see either you'd be in pre-construction, or we'd be accepting pre-orders, or we'd be in construction, or it'd be serviceable. So then you'd be able to see that update. And then when you signed up, when different people signed up, they'd get messaging back that matches that status.
Okay, and Gary, I'm sorry, one last question. The map that you have up there, it's literally shaded in two different colors of green, one on side of one. Ooh, sorry, one on the one side of 9, and one which is Round Lake Village, and then everything on the other side, which is Round Lake District. Is there a reason for the different shading? Or are you thinking they will, that's why you're saying they could be 2 different districts? I'm just trying to understand the map.
The only reason for the different shading is just to call out the Round Lake portion of the district. Just because initially this was all just one district. So when we presented this information to Malta, like they just saw it all as one district. But once the village of Round Lake did reach out, then that's when we all started talking, like maybe we should just carve it up. And again, it still would be built the exact same way that we've been planning to, but just so that when people do go look at that interactive map, they see like, oh, that's where I live, like, and then it says like Round Lake. So then they can identify with that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? And the audience have a question?
Can you hear me all right, or do I have to move the microphone? I just come up here. Can you hear me okay?
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I just have a question. It was probably like maybe like 15 years ago, where I think was it Verizon who ran fiber optics through. It basically bypassed everybody, and they chose who they wanted to have as they went along. Would they? I don't. I could never understand why they did it. I'm sure it was a cost issue. I think they bypassed to go into global boundaries. Was it a cost issue, or they just didn't want to deal with it? And is it possible for them to actually split off of it if they want to compete with you in the future? I don't know how that works.
So if they could decide to come back to Round Lake and other areas in the capital region that they don't currently offer their service, and then they would basically have to go through the same process as us. Maybe slightly less because they own the utility poles, so their utility pole process might be a little more streamlined. But they would have to, again, like hang their own fiber. And then if anyone chose to take Verizon's service, then they would run the fiber to their house. So it would be a very similar process, but they wouldn't use our fiber, and we would never use their fiber.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So I'm not sure what their thought process was when deciding where to build and how, because we see similar like kind of going like randomly all over the place in the Buffalo area as well. So they went to certain towns and skipped some other ones.
I would imagine that's why you formed your company, to kind of pick up those towns they skipped, or.
So I think when it was formed, it was really just about Rochester, because Rochester had no fiber, nothing. So there was a really big opportunity in Rochester, but then in 2018, Tom Galisano invested in the company, and he the plan with his investment was not only to continue to build out in the Monroe County, Rochester area, but then go to these other areas in New York State. So that's really what kind of pushed that forward. But then once we were picking in Buffalo where to go, we obviously didn't want to go where Verizon was, and that's when we noticed that they skipped like almost the whole city of Buffalo, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, North Tonawanda, Niagara Falls, like all these areas. So we're happy to go in and build them and grab those customers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more?
One here, Gary.
Tom?
Yeah, just to follow up on something Scott mentioned. Does Verizon, when they do their fiber optics, do they provide telephone, internet, and computer stuff, or do they only provide one, or do they provide some in some places?
I think they provide internet and telephone. I don't think they provide TV, but they usually do have some type of deal where you can get like YouTube TV if you order with them for a few months or something, from what I remember from the research. But they do phone and internet. They don't do TV, when I remember.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, Casey, well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to working with you in the coming year.
Yes, absolutely. I think I'll follow up with you and Matt tomorrow just to see what next steps are and go forward from there. But thank you so much for having me. These questions were great. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay. Any public comments other than related to anything else? Nope. Okay, moving on to new business, holiday market, community room request. Kim, our annual,
Yes. The holiday market in this room, we're looking at Friday, November 8th. We're looking for Friday, November 18th to use the room from 4 to 8 p.m. with cleanup afterwards. Blessing of the board.
November 18th from who to what?
4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Say.
4 to 9, and this has been going on every year except, did it go on last year?
No.
Every year except for the COVID years. The COVID decade. All right, it doesn't require a vote, I don't think. It's
Got my
an
blessing.
an awareness. All right, then next we have Cindy and your attorney. Did you want an easel or are you going to put it on the table?
Put it on the table.
Okay.
I have a fairly loud voice, but if you need me to use.
No, if you're up here,
Close
standing up
enough,
here,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah, you're good.
So what I'm going to start with is just to sort of recap. This, and I'm going to give you those. This particular plan is a plan that I provided. Let me make sure that I'm holding up. We had a discussion a while back, and this particular plan was presented. I think we discussed it. And it essentially called for 2 lots to be constructed or created down close to the wetlands on the lake side of the lot. So as you look at your plans right now, that basically would have been here in this area, right here in this area, right here in this area. So that was the original plan to show those 2 lots. So we've had a lot of different discussions. So this is sort of the tortoise and the hare. You always want to run forward, but sometimes it makes sense to take the tortoise effect and sort of think about it a little bit. So we've had a lot of conversations, a lot of different people. And in discussing it, there was a discussion of, well, first of all, that we'd like to come in with a PDD. Second of all, that, what are really the odds that for lack of a better term, that the village would agree to 2 lots? And then a third and overarching question comes down to, well, what about DEC? Because there's an awful lot of wetlands out there. So we spent the summer essentially having conversations with the architect, not the architect, but the surveyors and the engineers, and trying to figure out what's the best approach. And the best approach sometimes is to think twice, and then come back and start all over again. So in thinking twice, we've come up with a plan that basically creates a lot in the southernmost corner of the property, which would be right here. That does not involve this right here. This map would be right here. And that's the old map, of course. And it does not involve, oh, very good, you have it on. So it does not involve DEC at all. So we don't have to knock on DEC's door. our surveyors have talked to DEC extensively. And by going with a plan that essentially uses what's now a field for horses, we stay away from DEC matters completely. And then the plan would be to essentially put the house towards Route 9 side and put a leach field in the back. And that would be essentially, it's not as exciting as pulling fiber. This is more bricks and mortar. The idea would be to develop a lot in front. And then we would obviously have to talk to the New York State DOT people. I would assume there's got to be a highway cut permit for the driveway. There might be a possibility, depending on where the location comes out for the driveway, whether it goes directly on Route 9 or we could create an easement onto the existing driveway and use the existing access area out. And then from I don't think it would have any, excuse me, impact on the project before the village, but we would probably consider discussion down the line for somebody if they're buying a lot, giving them some sort of easement down to the lake. Again, that would not be a lot cut of any sort. There would just be an easement over existing property to be retained by Cindy. Cindy is not planning to go anywhere right now, although she may consider building her own house in front and then selling her house in the back if she comes up with a good enough plan. But right now it's pared down. We went from 2 lots to 1, but more importantly, we went away from the wetland areas and up towards Route 9, where we think the impact, if any, would be very, very minimal. We know from a DEC perspective, there would be no impact at all. That's essentially the presentation. I apologize for not having a lot more to say.
What are you asking from the board?
We're asking for, my understanding would be that if it, for conceptual, so that we could submit a formal, not a conceptual, but we're floating the idea, floating the balloon. And it's my understanding that from there, we would actually come in with a formal application.
So you're seeking a plan development district approval for this?
Correct.
Why would a subdivision not be possible under the existing law?
I've looked at different possibilities, and it's my understanding that we should have asked for a PDD, but if it's a straight subdivision, then we would do that too. But either way, we'd still want to come in and float the balloon before we come in with a formal application. Of course, would submit the application that is deemed most appropriate by your staff.
So you're just kind of notifying the board of what you're doing and seeking any reaction there might be before you go to the planning board and ask for subdivision.
Correct.
No, the land is zoned land conservation. Okay, thank you. So you need a PD. Well, on it. The planning board doesn't have the authority to do that, only the village. Very good, thank you.
But the land that you're looking at, it's not wetland. This is
No.
where the horse paddock is.
So how big a lot is that? Is that an acre?
1 acre, yeah.
So, and the shaded area, that's wetlands. It's been plotted. This is not, somebody taking a thumb and saying this looks wet. That's
Mhm.
actual plotted wetlands.
Here is the current property zone the same too, so is it
Yeah, the
the
whole.
property predates, the building predates the zoning?
Yes.
Is that, okay,
Well, I mean, the history on the property was that it was a Baltic motel, as you're probably too young to remember.
I am too young, thank you.
But it was, commercial use, and then actually, there were some cabins there, camping trailers, some debris, and over time, things have improved markedly. Of course, the lake has come up substantially since then too, which we all know about at the low views. So again, it was my understanding we needed to go through the PD process, but of course, when council gives you a hint that maybe you're in the wrong queue, you always try to be flexible. So that would be the process then. Again, either way, we did want to come in and have float the balloon to see if it would be acceptable, because we are taking the tortoise approach here. We're trying to to not waste everybody's time, if there's a great objection to it.
I think what you're saying is that it's not a planning board.
Right, it's a
Well-
village board issue.
Question, so the applicant that came and presented to us regarding they want to put the HQ up there on the bypass, which would have been a PDD, because it was zoned residential. It required a vote of the board to send it to the planning board, correct? And then the planning board would make their recommendations and send it back to the board for final approval, so this would be a similar process, Tom, to that?
It would be, and then if the PDD is granted by the board, then there'd be site plan review on the planning board.
Okay.
Ping pong ball.
Right, and that's why when I mentioned the formal applications, my understanding would be formal application to the village board. And we understand it's a ping pong ball effect. So that's why also we want to float the ball, because nobody wants to go through ping pong balls.
Right. Of course.
You're wasting everybody's time, so. So that's essentially, the project has been now radically changed. And I think simplified. So that's. I mean, other than the driveway issue, I mean, the other thing I would comment is that we do need to find out exactly where the leach field is for the existing home. So that may impact how that line goes. Right now, it's in a 90, the back line is at a 90-degree angle off the sideline. You know, might impact it a little bit one way or the other, but again, of course, what we would do is just we'd stay out of the wetland in terms of construction and all that.
And DOT will have the call on whether the
I would assume so, yes.
curb cuts are the appropriate cuts.
Right, I assume so.
I'm sorry, how big is this property that you're referring to?
Parcel to be created would be 1 acre.
And how many houses?
One home.
So,
Right, the
Total, yeah.
The total acreage is 17.
13, sorry,
13?
I don't know what land conservation does to, I don't.
Well, basically means nothing.
A
Oh,
little
sorry.
history, everything on, I guess, the east side of Route 9 is land conservation. And it's been that way, I think, 1960, they changed everything over to land conservation. Currently, where that little, right next to the boat launch, there's a little apartment building that's in land conservation. Cindy's house is in land conservation. Heidi's house, next house down, land conservation. It ends at the mill. Everything from the mill, anything in Round Lake from the mill north is land conservation. A lot of these homes and buildings were built before they rezoned it. This land has been in the same family for
60, I think 65.
I mean,
So what does land conservation mean?
it means that you really, you shouldn't build on it. You can't build on it. You need 10 acres to build a house on. And everything that's there right now, I guess, is, I hate that word grandfather, you know, it's in, you know, they've done it, it's there. So in other words, in order to, if you have, Heidi has 15 acres or 13 acres, in order for her to build another house on that, she would need a PDD because they changed the zoning for land conservation.
just as you know, previously had permission to build a bed and breakfast. On the property.
And this building is gonna be about what, 150 feet from the mill, 200? I mean, not that
Well,
far.
Heidi's property.
I'm just looking at it on the map here. It's not that far though, right?
No,
No.
Yeah, so, I mean.
I hope we don't make too much noise.
That would,
There might be a requirement to put in the deed a notice to purchasers that the property is X number of feet from an active commercial establishment.
um,
That's not a problem at all.
I mean, on the face of it, I don't see, other than the fact that obviously it's zoned land conservation right now, it seems to be close enough to another commercial enterprise. It's clearly, and there's other houses in the area that it would make sense to at least let the planning board take a look at it further. And then come up with any recommendations to kick it back to the board. That's how I feel about it personally.
Yeah, I even had a little portion in the front there and you find it was commercial.
Mhm.
And that, if they rezoned everything, whoop, it's gone. It's like, you know,
Matt, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
How would that look, Tom? To make a motion to refer this to the planning board for further consideration?
Well, this is not an application, so
Okay.
I think what the applicant's probably looking for is just a sense of the board
Yeah.
as to whether there's one or more members who say, no, this is not gonna fly.
Yeah.
So they don't waste their time. So I think it's more like a straw poll of,
Okay, we don't need a resolution.
whether it looks, whether we tell them the applicant it's worth putting the time and effort into
But
making a formal application.
if it's a PDD,
Correct, sir?
That is absolutely correct.
We did make a formal resolution with the applicant that presented for the PDD at the bypass, and that was rejected by the board. I believe.
so should,
I'm happy doing a straw poll, but I just want to make sure that we're consistent.
So I guess one more thing that it mentioned if this, because I don't know if it was a formal vote or not. The other benefit of going to this corner is that, of course, one of the things that Round Lake, I'm sure, is very concerned with is just the visual effects. So this particular corner, first of all, when you're driving by, it's just that corner that you don't really see because you're just because of the truss, you know, the bridge. But also, when you look to the right, you see a home, which is Cindy Sabier's home. So when you look to the right now, you'll see a home. And Cindy's house will be behind it, so it's not going to be taking a visual impact. For, you know, if it was further down Route 9, where you may look to the right and then see the lake, that's not going to occur. And also, quite honestly, because of some of the foliage there, you probably don't see the lake as you drive past this spot anyway. So from an aesthetics perspective, we don't believe there's an impact. And also from a health, safety, and welfare perspective, of course, we would have to meet all the New York State health requirements for septic and water and all that. And the surveyors have done their analysis and feel that we can get a properly designed field, a leach field in with, you know, all the septic issues could be taken care of through the normal construction processes, and the well could be placed without any problems in the area allotted, because again, the area currently allotted is 1 acre, so it's a significant area.
so it seems like if we took a vote on the Jerson project, it seems like we should take a vote on this one.
I feel that way personally.
Motion.
So I'll make a resolution that the board finds the application sufficiently worthy is the right word, but
I think what I heard you say
yeah,
was
go
that
ahead.
you're moving a resolution that the board waive the presentation of the formal PDD application and allow it to proceed directly to the planning board for its review and recommendation back to the village board. Was that what you said?
Yes, exactly. Right.
yeah, I would second that.
Heidi, second discussion?
Just to clarify, excuse me. We're sending it to the planning board, but the final decision will be ours, and this is not the final decision.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question or clarification. So this resident, this land was private property for many years in the family, and then through rezoning got zoned as conservation. And all they're doing is asking to add another house to the property that they have owned prior to the conservation status. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
but they're not adding a house for their own personal use, they are selling this, it would be.
And the proposal is that that 1 acre be rezoned.
But they have owned that property since prior to the conservation status, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly. Thank you.
Prior to being a village, I think. Wow. Okay, Paul? Sure.
We're voting Tom,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Yes.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next on the agenda is the revised intermunicipal agreement with Malta for Maltaville Water Project. And as it stands, Tom, I believe you sent the Malta attorney your revisions. Have you heard back from him regarding those revisions?
Trying to remember whether I sent them to you for review or whether I sent them on to Malta. I think I did send them on to Malta. I have not heard anything back yet. I don't think there's anything in there that would be particularly offensive to them. Some of those comments were just clarifications. But I haven't heard back yet.
Okay, so you want to touch base with them tomorrow? And then we can put this on the docket again for 19th?
I'll contact Malta tomorrow and perhaps you can vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay. And next, we have a request from not a resident, but a user of Round Lake. And Kim, do you have the letter? Was it included in the packet? Thank you. The request was Mayor, greetings, Mr. Mayor. I hope this message finds you in good times. Earlier this year, while frequenting Round Lake on my jet ski, I noticed a new sign that was erected at the entrance of the launch stating that all PWCs are prohibited from launching on the lake. Being a responsible jet skier, I respected the wishes of the sign and left to launch somewhere else at Saratoga Lake. As the summer went on, I realized that nothing is quite the same as when I used to take my jet ski to Round Lake. There's more people everywhere else, and to top it off, there are launch fees involved and so on. I'm reaching out to see if there's any way PWCs would be allowed to launch on the lake again, and if so, what would need to be done to reach said goal? Maybe a petition with signatures from residents that would be allowing. I just can't comprehend how motorized vessels are able to launch on the lake and jet skis are not. It doesn't seem like a fair jurisdiction, in my opinion. I would like to know anything. So I sent them back a video of a couple jet skis, you know, playing chicken on the lake. And we have literally thousands of kayaks, canoes, sailboats, and stand-up paddle boards that can be swamped by jet skis. And I sent him the link. He sent back, my proposal is this, maybe the board and yourself could consider allowing a designated week or two during the summer that would allow jet skis on Round. That way, at least during these designated times, kayakers and others using the lake regularly would know when PWCs would be allowed onto the lake and could better plan when they would decide to use the lake, if they so choose to avoid PWCs. Would you consider this compromise and meet me in the middle, so to speak? I appreciate you answering me in a timely fashion, especially on a Sunday. All right, so that was the request. And then open for comments from the board on said request.
Didn't we have a petition to get the jet skis out of the lake?
There was talk of one. I don't know if any came about, because I think we were already working on it when the petition was being discussed. I think.
Okay.
I don't remember there was, I don't know if it was formally presented, but I do remember there was some sort of petition circulating. I can't recall. exactly
Yeah.
what was presented to the board or not.
I think he'd have a hard time. I think he'd be hard pressed to find enough people to sign that petition, to be honest with you, to request jet skis be allowed. And I think there's difficulty even, I'm not of the mind to consider a week or two, because what week is it? Oh, that week doesn't work for these people. People don't get the communication. I just don't think realistically that it would work. That's just my personal opinion.
Trying to quit smoking by cutting down to 1 cigarette a day.
Yeah, I do think it would generate a lot of confusion too, among people, if you were to allow it, a week or 2 weeks or whatever. I think you either have a prohibition or you don't.
Right.
And I think there was widespread support for the prohibition, which is why it was enacted in the first place.
We're not gonna make everybody happy, understandably, but I think that's the reason we have the law. Because more people want it. It's a small lake.
Tom, you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have to say I was a reluctant vote in favor of banning them. But because I'm one of these people who believe we all can get along. This is all recreation and all that kind of stuff. And I also thought that there was a couple of people who got their noses bent out of shape because they saw a jet ski. And quite honestly, you don't see that many jet skis down there. But having said all that stuff, it's a small lake. People go out there to kayak and canoe, not necessarily because of Round Lake, but what you can get from Round Lake, and go down to the Kill and you can go in there and it's really kind of cool. And the jet skis in my mind need more space.
Mhm.
It's like a guy going out on a lake that size, not a fisherman, with a 200 horse Mercury or 250 Mercury to ski. I mean, we had camp for decades up north. We had many boats, and we would never have taken a boat onto a lake this size. This is nothing to it. After you swing around once, it's like, I want to go home. I agree. I think it's just the wrong place for this kind of watercraft. Now, having said that, I might be a little more opposed to setting horsepower limits, because most of the fishermen do go out there, and they may have big engines on the back of the boats that they launch, but they're using their electric trolling engines to get around. So I think the horsepower thing might be a little bit of a more complicated thing. But I agree. I think the jet skis just inappropriate for this. These guys can have more fun out on bigger lakes with them than you're ever going to have on Round Lake.
Okay, well, I agree with all that has been said. So I will inform this person of the board's feelings. In a couple minutes, you can, after the next topic. Jet ski requested that. We had also a request from several requests, actually, and this is from village residents asking about hunting on village land. I had a discussion with Mr. Peterson, and the village really has no regulations hunting or trapping. So the question was, the most recent question I got was, can this person hunt bow hunting, and specifically he was talking about on these lands within the village of Round Lake. And within the village, there's two categories. There's New York State land, and I think it's and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think, you know, we basically have no jurisdiction over that, so that's just following the DEC regulations regarding that. And the village land, in particular down here is where some people were hunting. And again, we have no regulations regarding it. And I know Mr. Lehman was, rest his soul, hunted frequently back here. And
My understanding is that you would want to have for the trustees at the next meeting, a draft local law or resolution that would provide that there be no hunting with firearms on village property.
That's my question.
Forms of hunting that don't generate noise, but that firearms would be prohibited. And that would be taken, not really as a status of village, but because village owns that property, control what happens and what. Is that correct?
well, I'd like to get the sense of the board. I mean, I personally am not opposed to hunting with firearms, at least in the southern part of the village. Up here doesn't appear to be too much room.
There's houses down.
Yeah, but I think there's
Yeah, I
regulations on
see.
how close you can be to
Yeah.
a building.
500.
500 feet, I believe. So, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of village land that would lie inside of that number to begin with, but if it did, I'm not personally opposed to having any restrictions on it.
Are those areas, are those areas or would those areas be clearly marked so that hunters would know if they were quote unquote crossing the line?
Under which scenario? If hunting were allowed or were not allowed?
If it were allowed?
I mean, hunting is allowed right now.
Yes.
I mean, so that's the status quo, is that hunting is allowed. So was this person or people that were asking, were they just seeking to find out what the village's policy was?
Yeah,
In regards to it?
one outside resident, a Malta resident wanted to know specifically about bow hunting.
Mhm.
And a resident has asked about trapping.
Mhm.
And
I personally see it as such an insignificant amount of land that would fall within our jurisdiction, is the larger parcels of state land, that it doesn't seem to me to be worthwhile to pursue any sort of guardrails or regulations on it personally. But
Are
that's
there
my,
trails through that?
through here?
Yeah.
Oh, God,
No.
no.
Although you,
I actually hiked that once and I had to. go
yes,
up the ravine, up the ravine. It was quite an
Yeah.
adventure.
How did you get access to
Which land?
our land? It's up there. The only access is through Victoria Landing.
is that Bangs Ave there?
yeah, yeah, it's Bangs Avenue, and I share Gary, I've done it a few times. And even before Victorian Landings, you could walk down the east side, kind of like the east side of the Northway. You got to get your feet wet in a couple places, but you could walk all the way down. It's, I don't know where Sam Miller's property ends, but it's down below there, I think, and you kind of come out. And I have to say that I've never seen a hunter of any sort in that particular parcel, but you know, I'm not there all the time, and I know Bill Lehman did it.
Yeah.
Well, I walk down there, Pearl Mine and Wood Road, and there are definitely during hunting season, there are people hunting. And
Okay. Okay.
so it's private land, so that's, I don't know whose land, but it's posted and there's still hunters.
Right, it's Paulus' land.
All right.
Well, in Clifton Park? Are you talking about Clifton Park?
No, well, there are cars parked occasionally along the way. Some of it's Clifton Park. I'm not sure if it's. You don't see cars in front of Corliss's property, but I'm saying, how do you get there? Down in the direction. So how do you get to that land?
Well, I mean, if they got permission from Corliss, that's a big chunk of land to hunt on.
So you're saying if you had,
She fought with Bill Lehman for years. She did not want him, she does not want hunting on.
Where the question before us though is our land.
right, so what I was asking is if you can get to our land, yeah.
Yeah, go through her land.
Right.
Actually, there is a strip that goes through here from Washington. And that's a paper street, I think, that we would say. Is
I
it,
mean,
is
we
it a
can't-
problem of sufficient magnitude that we need to do anything?
I personally don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I agree.
Unless it's troubling to the neighbors, but you know, if you can't do anything with Corliss's property.
I don't know if that was between him, her and Bill or what
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the situation was. So. All right, well, let's think about it for a couple of weeks, and if anybody has any concerns to bring up, you can ask around. And, see if anybody has any concerns about it.
Yeah. Let it percolate a little bit and see.
All right, Steve, I'll jump ahead to public comments.
Yes, I just wanted to address Jesse. Like most people out on fishing, they go around, drive out to the spot. With the jet ski, this is different, it's constant, high speed. And it generates a lot of noise. You know, you don't want to get rid of that. Or you can be participating, but when you're not, you have to keep going. Just because of nature. The toys.
Yeah, and if you're trying to kayak and they're going by and
Yeah.
you're not so steady to begin with. Okay.
It was a jet ski.
That was the attorney.
Okay. Okay, next is the village attorney.
That was it, right?
That was it. Thank you for that input. Village mayor, we recently had a tree survey completed, and the results will be coming back soon with a work plan, basically, and with that, we can use that as a basis for applying for DEC urban forestry funding for a maintenance plan. So we're looking forward to that. I'd like to thank Stuart Galloway and his committee for doing an outstanding job on getting all that stuff done. Trustees, Tom,
Nothing for me, thank you.
Heidi,
Nope.
No, nothing for me.
Tina.
Nope.
All right, well, you guys feel better? Public comment, anything more?
Just saying, you know, at the last meeting, we talked about leaking roof of your area. I did get a contract there to take a look at it. We gave me two prices, one with removing the old roof, replacing the pretty new sheathing on, and re-roofing the building, and then another one, just re-roofing the building.
Re-roofing meaning just shingles?
Yeah, the just putting shingles on the sheet. I think one price was around $80,000, and one price was around $180,000, something, you know. But I did get two prices, and I did see where it is leaking. You can see it on the concrete inside.
Under the the wing closest to us?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I'd seen too. Okay, Cindy?
Yes, I just have to ask for a reference to the tree committee.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost, had 10 trees, and I know that there's more about this ash borer.
Mm-hmm.
Is in references to tree committee, are they only in my village?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's nothing on private property?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the ash borer has taken about 15 or so trees in the village I've had taken down.
So it's my responsibility. So
Okay.
they won't give me a new tree to grow?
Saratoga Tree Nursery, if you're patient, they'll give you one that big.
Little cedar tree. Big now.
Okay, no executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Voice from the,
I said.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Good night. Get well, Tina.
Yeah,
Thank you. All
take it easy.
right, see you guys.
Okay, thank you. Stop the share.
I'm out of here, guys.
All right.